Hi, I am Nikki Wesson. I am here today to describe to you how to use this sewing machine. It's a Kenmore model 385.19112. I'm creating these videos in order to explain to a group of high school students that I'm working with how to sew. So I'm assuming that you have that you have little to no experience on sewing. So I'm going to try to keep it as simple as I can as far as the instructions. So let's start with the power. The machine gets power over here on the right side. There's a switch that you can see it turns the light on and off. It also gives it power. The power cord is here. It's connected to both a plug that goes into the wall and also to a foot pedal. I have the foot that you would sit on the floor to control the machine. So back over to here, we have, the one thing I wanted to point out about the foot pedal is the harder you push on that while you're sewing, the faster the machine will go. There's also the hand wheel, which is here. You turn it towards you and the needle goes up and down. You see? Alright. The fabric that you'll be sewing goes in here. In order to hold it in place, there's a lever here that you push up and down to hold the fabric in to begin sewing or to release it. There is an extension table here. Let's see, come down here, that can be removed if you just pull it to the right. It comes out. Now you can hold things in here. If you do that, be careful because there's nothing holding it in once you pull it out and things can fall out. Something to point out here, this control is for if you want to do like darning, where you want to control, you don't want the foot to hold it really tight and you want to be able to move the fabric yourself. Usually the machine is moving it when you're just doing a straight stitch, but you would flip this over and it puts the can't think what these are called, but these little zigzag feet that are down here underneath the machine, they hold the fabric in place and move it as you go. So when you have it over, it pushes those down so it won't move the fabric, but for normal sewing you always want that over to the right. Alright, for free arm sewing, I wanted to describe that. That's if you want to do like sew something on the cuff of an arm sleeve or pants, the bottom of the pants or something. You can put that on here and kind of move it around, if that makes sense. Usually I have this on and I'm sewing with a slightly larger table. This presser foot is for straight stitch sewing or zigzag sewing. There are other feet that you can use. It's kind of a neat feature if you want to change the foot, like there's special feet for doing buttons or zippers or something. All you do is pull this toward you and it pops right out. It has a little bar. Let's see, can you see that little bar? It goes into a slot down here. So in order to put it back, you just line it up with that little slot and push it back and it goes right back in. This is the bobbin for this machine. It's a top loading bobbin. Let me turn the light off and see if you can hopefully see a little bit better. The bobbin's in here. This is a tab, you pull it over towards you, this door comes up and there's your bobbin. And when you're sewing, you have the thread of that bobbin coming out the top of the machine, but when you pull it out, it just comes out. And there's your bobbin with some thread on it. And I will show you in another video how to get that properly threaded again. In order to put it back in there, you just line up the little tabs on the right and push it in. And, well, the thread needs to be up that way, but I'll show you how to get that all fixed up. Up here on the machine is where you would put your spool of thread. There's a spool of thread. You just slide that right off. The spool goes on here, and the cap goes on to hold it in place. Okay. Now, one thing to note about this machine is this spool pin, let me take this back off, it's kind of clipped in there, in here on the machine, but it's not permanently. It can easily come off, and I've actually had that happen where somebody borrowed this machine, and when they brought it back, this was missing, and it just had popped off in their car and they hadn't noticed it. So be careful, cautious of that this can come off fairly easily. I don't want to pull it off just because I don't want to make it even more easy for it to come out. So now if we come down here, this is the pattern selector dial. It corresponds to the machine over here. This tells you what each letter means and which stitch it will do. So if you want to change it, right now it's on A, which is this one, which means the thread line is centered in the machine. So it has to do with where this needle is centered over this foot. So with A, you're centered on it. With B, you're off to the left. And here I will switch it to B. Maybe you can see how the needle will move. See, it moves to the left. And the other stitches are like zigzag stitches or fancier stitches. The bottom ones are stretch stitches, and I think if you change it, well, I won't go into that yet. We'll talk about that one later. The other thing, these are all having to do with making a buttonhole. So those would be set that way. For straight stitching, which is most of what I do and most of what you'll do if you're helping me with the masks, is you'll be on A. This dial is your stitch length dial. 0 means the machine will just stay in one place and sew. And as you go further over, it's a longer stitch. For the masks, I usually have it on 3. And then this is your stretch stitch setting. And then down here, this is your reverse. When you begin sewing straight, you want to push this down so you do like maybe 3 reverse stitches and then let go and go forward. And then at the end of that line of sewing, you'll again go back 3 stitches and stop and take your fabric out of the machine. Here is your thread tension dial. This one I have set at 3. This has to do with the tensioning of the top thread. Remember, you have a bottom thread with your bobbin. You'll also have the top thread up here. So there's a lot more instruction in your manual that talks about when to adjust this one, but for the most part, you'll just leave it at 3. And let's see, up at the top of the machine, these are areas where you'll do threading, which I'll show you in a future video. Over here is for winding your bobbin when the bobbin that's in here is empty and you need more thread on it. You'll put it up here. It can push over so that the machine can wind it, and then push it back over to pull it off. But I'll, again, show you more on that later. So I think that gives you the basics of how to use this machine. Thanks.